In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the art of air layering. And to begin with, we'll take a trip back to some footage that we filmed back in June when we were undertaking air layering on trees at the nursery. Air layering allows us to produce nice bonsai material from otherwise substandard material. And as part of that, we apply either a tourniquet or a ring bark method to promote roots using a hormone rooting gel or powder and sphagnum moss, which is then wrapped in a plastic outer film. Once the air layer is taken, we can sever that piece of material from the mother plant, and that allows us to take it forward as a separate small tree. But as with all things in bonsai, air layering does take time to complete. Okay, so it's now the end of August, and obviously September, the 1st of September marks the start of meteorological autumn. Here we have two air layers that we put on earlier in the year, and now is a good time to check these air layers, and we have a decision to make whether the air layer is given more time to develop more roots to support that tree once we sever it, or whether there's sufficient in there that we can sever them and start the next phase. But we'll start off with the crab apple that we have here, and this luckily was marked, so we did this air layer on the 26th of June. And if we take a look at how this one is doing, we can see that there are roots. The air layer is taking, but I don't quite think there's sufficient roots for us to sever this, pot it on, and give it the best chance of coming through and flushing out with foliage in spring next year. So we'll wrap this one back up and we will leave it until next year, and we're probably looking May or June when we take another look after it's pushed out leaves, which will in turn force that air layer to push out more roots. So we'll wrap this one up. We obviously have a polytunnels to leave these in over winter, but if you don't, then there's a number of ways you can treat this. You can put bubble wrap around the air layer, and really all we're looking to do is keep the frost out of there with those newly developing roots. But if we take a look at this next tree, this is a pyracantha, a firethorn, and this came in as a project tree. It has since been purchased by a customer, and what we're looking to attempt to do is to sever this top part of the tree from the bottom and take them forward as two separate trees. But if we take off this wrap, take it off fully, you can see that this particular piece has developed an extraordinary amount of roots, and what we'll be looking to do with this is to sever it from the bottom of the tree. We'll remove as much of this sphagnum moss as we can safely, and you have to be very delicate with the new roots that are formed, and we will then pot this into a relatively free draining but still with the ability to hold moisture soil mix. We'll make sure it is stable in that pot so that we don't get wind rock, and again we potentially want to just protect this from the worst of frosts, assuming that we get those in the coming winter. And then the top will go on as a separate tree from next year, and we can immediately begin to style and refine what's left at the bottom with wiring over the autumn period, and we'll look to repot that bottom section into a much more suitable pot when it comes round to spring next year. So those are the two differences and the ways that we should approach them. I think there is potentially a third one, and that is if there isn't any roots that are formed as yet, it could be down to the species, and some don't air layer well at all. or it could just be that you need to give it longer, and that would be treated in much the same way as this one, wrapped up for winter, put away, and we'll inspect it again towards the middle of spring, with a view that once it's flushed out and got more roots, then we sever them. But that is air layers. I'll get on with severing this one and get it into its own pot, which will take a bit of time, and hopefully we'll revisit that in a later episode. But now, let's take a visit to another one of our much loved viewer gardens.
This is a big Scotch pine, repotted this year. It's doing well. Look at the size of that trunk. This is where I keep my junipers that I've recently repotted. Nice little Chinese elm. A nice shimpaku. Nice kishu. And a nice Itigawa raw material, not worked on that yet. And a Tsumi Benny that I'm working on. A little showing black thorn. And a hornbeam. This is some of my material I'm working on. Naoki secas, black pines, Itigawa and shimpaku cuttings, little kokonori, yew, San Jose juniper, little black pine, another black pine, and a red pine, some Scots. This is a lovely cascade. Scots pine, a lovely little white pine, my favourite piece, my white pine on its own rootstock.
It's always great to admire other people's trees, but the one thing that we don't necessarily do is take the time to appreciate our own trees, whatever stage they're at, and we don't do it often enough. The one thing that I would say is take photos of your trees, appreciate them both now and in the future. Those photos will allow you to look at the progress that your trees have made over the past months or years. So my advice to you is to sit back, take a good look at your trees as they are right now, and enjoy it. After all, that's what all your hard work is for.